Okay. So, for somebody who hasn't heard anything about what's been going on between you guys and Clint Halftown, could you summarize that situation and how it relates to the march that happened today?
What time? How much time is that?
Start wherever you feel comfortable.
Okay, I'll give you a Reader's Digest version of what happened. My uncle, who was chief at the time, back in the late 90s, got sick, and he appointed some people to be representatives of their clan. Clinton happened to be one of them for the Heron clan. Chuck was another one, and anyways, I missed that meeting, so I wasn't able to get the Bear Clan representative, and I found that out later. So what happened was that his mother was secretary at the time, wrote a little letter saying that they needed to have a representative for the nation, and Clinton went and took that letter and asked the other guys, the representatives, to sign it. They all signed it. He was only supposed to be a contact, from what I understand, but then they put in federal representative. And the last line said to deal with all governments. And that's not what was signed the first time. That's what was given to the government. And the government from that point on has recognized Clint Halftown as a federal rep for Cayuga Nation, and we fought that. We've been fighting it since 2005 anyways, when we became, Chuck and I became chiefs. What we wanted to do was take that title away because we know that it's bad, and that's not what we're all about. My uncle was just a point of contact to sign a check so that we could have an office. There would be all kinds of information for all the rest of our people to come to and gather information about who they are, what they are, and where we come from, and the whole history. But after he became representative, that stopped. Now it was a matter of fighting what they were trying to tell people and what the truth is. We've been doing that for a lot of years now, and he continues to tell the lies about. He's trying to say there's no chiefs and clan mothers, and that his aunt is the only clan mother, which I couldn't believe when I read that. I saw that. Anyways, so it's been an internal dispute for many years. Leadership against the traditional leadership against what we call now a domestic terrorist because of what he did to our community back in February of 2020. That was caused by the government also, because Tara Sweeney, who was Assistant Secretary of the Interior at the time, wrote a letter that backed up Michael Black, who was the Interior before him. And but her wording was that the wording that got him to do what he did was he has all in big black letters power to do whatever he needs to do. That caused him to do what he did. That's what he's using. He's using all kinds of lies about the people themselves, and trying to justify himself, but it's not going to happen. He's already done the damage. Now he's going to have to go pretty soon. The government asked for some investigation. The supervisors here asked the same thing. That was in 2020. Everybody was against him. Didn't understand how he could do that to his people. The chiefs got together and we made a statement, a press release a week later saying that we don't do that to our people. We don't treat our people that way. So, and then we declared that his Cayuga Nation of New York is no longer an entity, and that anything and everything that anybody does from this point on, if it doesn't have our name on it, it's not true.
And what name is that?
Our name is Chiefs Council of the Cayuga Nation. And we have 7 signatures on 2 papers so far. And we're going to be presenting those to the legislature tonight again, to clarify, to tell the truth again, because He's still telling lies on how he's the voice of the nation. He's the only nation. He's not even a nation member anymore, according to us. He's committed treason. He's committed a terrorist act against his own people, and he's no longer inside our circle. That's how we presented it to the press release and the announcement we just made about a month or so ago. So that's where it stands. Since that point, he's still trying to spend all our money as much as he can, because that's what he's been doing, is spending our nation money on whatever he wants to do or she wants to do. When I say she, I mean his mother. So that's where we're at right now. Hopefully the government will do something other than what they've already done by taking that title away from him. And I'm still looking for somebody to do something about the funding that he spent, misappropriation of funds, whatever you want to call it, whatever the worst case can be against him with our money. Because he certainly has destroyed a lot of things with it. He's a sick man.
Would it be all right with you if I took my mask off so that people watching the video can see what I'm saying? Thank you. So I'm just going to ask a couple more specific questions based on some of the stuff that came up in there. And for these more just like, I don't know, specific questions with specific answers. So how did Clint Halftown come to power, and when did that happen?
late 2003 and early 2004. When that letter was sent in to the BIA recognizing him as a federal rep. That's when it started.
And who signed that letter?
Sharon Halftown, his mother, Secretary of the Nation, supposedly.
And in the 20 or so years that Clint Halftown has been in his position, has the United States government given you the opportunity to have democratic say over a change in leadership?
Once. Anytime he sent a piece of paper in, because what happened was that we had a Grand Council on the same thing that was going on. And Grand Council said, we're not going to let this happen again because it happened in Oneida before this. So they said they weren't going to let it happen again. So they wrote a letter. We're going to go down to BIA, explain everything that happened, who's the people to be contacted with, and that's the way it was going to be. And at the end of that meeting, there was a line that somebody said, well, where's the paperwork? So ever since then, we've been creating that paper trail. Anyone can find out how we've been trying to fight him for the last 20 years. Once, I think it was in 2015, there was a guy named Keel who happened to be at the BIA office. And he decided to recognize us because of what the clan mothers had said at that time. And as soon as he said that, he disappeared from the office. And Clint Halftown, again, his appeal won back his recognition from the one that took his place.
Understood. In that 20 years, how has he used your people's money without your consent?
Well, in 2000, I think it was early 2006, the five of us got together, the two herons, the two bears, and two turtles, well, not two herons, but one of the herons, and two bears and two turtles, because that's all we had at the time. Signed the paper, sent it into the government that he's no longer whatever he called himself. And that lasted about 2 weeks, and then the two turtle representatives, how I say it is that they were bought. Clint gave them $150,000, said, hey, you want to take back your words, you don't want to, you can come join me, I'll give you more money. And that's what they were after, so that's where he went. And then that whole thing was, again, back to Clint Halftown.
You mentioned something that had happened in February of last year. Would you be comfortable going into more detail about what happened then?
Um, well, we were Friday. We all did what we always do. Had our class. We had our food. Um, Nothing seemed to be disturbing, except for there was a couple of people that didn't want to be a part of us anymore, and they were raising a little heck. But it was nothing serious. So we left Friday with thinking everything's going to be okay. And I get a call at 3:30 and 4:30 in the morning that he's tearing down the building. And I didn't know what the heck that meant until the next day.
And what did it mean?
He tore all the building. He tore our schoolhouse down, the daycare center, the 6 cabins that we had back there. Well, there were 7, but only 6 were being used for people. And the store, the gas station, across the street was a sugar shack with a putt-putt. We sold ice cream. And what used to be a cannery, but we turned it into a place where people can go and eat, like a kitchen. So he tore all those buildings down, and some of the guys, one of the guys here, I don't know if he'll say anything, but one of the guys that was on duty for night watch, and he was waking up with a gun pointed to his head. Told to get out of the truck. He was zip tied. He was taken over to a van where everybody else was. There were 2 other guys there in the same situation. They all woke up to the gun to their head and zip tied and put in to watch the destruction of what the buildings that were going on. So within the days after that, he had, according to the town, he hadn't gotten a permit to do that. To do the destruction of the buildings. So he has other people working for him that can go get these permits that they want now for cleanup. So they went and sent her over there to get permits.
From who?
From the town. And that's when they cleared out all the buildings. They just put them in dumpsters. They destroyed our garden. I think they destroyed our chicken coop, our pigs. So we had some pigs back there. We had planted some trees. I don't know if they're all gone, but we had planted some peach trees, apple trees. I think the apple trees are gone. But they had wiped everything. Everything's gone, except for the main building. That's the white building over there. We call it the boathouse. We were turning that into a daycare when this happened. So it's still there. And the other 2 buildings across the street, he doesn't bother cleaning them up because he wants them to be there to remind people of what he can do.
What have those demolitions meant for the community?
Well, first of all, that's where we all met, right? That was our home, that was our life at the time. And with no place to go, no job to go to, nothing to do for the day or whatever that we did. We had classes, we all went to classes. We took care of that garden, we took care of our cornfield, pigs, chickens. We did those things up on a daily basis. And, with all that gone, where do we go? So everybody's been, I would say, devastated from what happened. He really he hurt the people rather than help them. That's why they were yelling that thing about, he doesn't care about children. So since then, it's been a struggle for the community to come together. We worked together for a little while after that. There were people helping us to maintain food for everybody and cooking meals for everybody still. So, but it's been rough going back to having to deal with our domestic terrorists. That's what I call them now.
How has that manifested since February of last year? I understand that folks have been camping out, worrying about possible evictions.
That started with the evictions back in March.
Okay.
I believe it was. So
of this year?
Yeah, I think it was this year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And you start with the evictions, and people say, "What the heck is this all about?" And I said, "Well, he's done this 2 times before, and he lost both times. He don't have any jurisdiction. Don't take any of the papers. if we don't take them, we don't acknowledge that court in the system anyways, because that in itself that's part of that money that you talked about earlier.
Yeah.
He bought himself a police department. He bought himself a judge, a prosecutor, and a defender, from what I understand, and a jail.
Wow.
Yeah. So he's been spending a lot of our money on. Oh yeah, and he bought them all new vehicles. So what's that, 50,000 piece? At least. So those are some of the things that we see him spending our money on that we don't get any part of.
There was an interaction today between the marchers and a local police force. Was that his police force that you just spoke about?
The ones that were on the side of the road with the lights on?
Yes.
Black and white car? No, those are the town cops. The fake police were the ones on the corner down there on the right-hand side, protecting the store down there.
With the red letters on their cars?
They can't do nothing.
They can't do anything.
They're just bodyguards or store guards. That's what we call them.
How many of them are there?
13 last I knew. And none of them are indigenous. They're all ex-state troopers, city cops, sheriffs.
And are those the ones who were involved in the demolitions last year and the evictions
definitely.
this year?
Yeah, they were given orders to clear out everybody, tie up everybody, make sure nobody was inside the buildings because they were going to be destroyed. We do have video on them coming in to the store with guns drawn. I don't know if you've ever seen these shows on TV where the cops come in with their guns drawn, you know, trying to find somebody or make sure they don't get shot first. And a week after that, one of their lawyers said, "Oh no, there was no guns involved." So we showed them the video. And they shut up about that.
So I'm gonna change directions of questioning a little bit. There was a banner that was held at the front of the march today that said, "Remember the children." What does that mean to you in the context of this march?
That it's a reminder of of what happened to our ancestors. How the children were taken away from the families back then. With, from what I understand from Carlisle, the guy said take the Indian out of it and save the man. And that's what they've been trying to do for. But then I saw another video seeing Unseen Tears with a couple of elders on there talking about when they were there and what happened to them. And it's a very sad story about the abuse that they had to go through. And it makes me angry at the nuns now and the preachers and everybody else that had anything to do with that. They're all trying to say that they were doing it for the right way to live. So it's and when they found those first 215, it's a reminder that there's a lot more to be found that were taken away and never made it to anything. We probably didn't even get to speak their language because they were taken at a young age.
From your perspective, how does what happened with the residential schools connect to what's happened with Clint Halftown in the last 20 years and the United States government's involvement in that?
Same thing. Nothing's changed much. BIA still has to do their assimilation, whatever they can do to assimilate people. Right now they're using Clint Halftown to do that. And because of Clint Halftown's damaged by the residential schools, he doesn't know any better, and she don't know any better either. So this is what they believe. They probably believe this is the right way to go. But now they got all that money, and from what I understand, I had $500 in my pocket one time, and I felt really powerful. I could buy many friends that way, you know.
Now I'm seeing them every day.
And then I said, "Oh, so that's what happened to them. They're sick. They got all that money and have control of it, and now they can do whatever they want to do." So they think. So they try to do the same thing here. We're a nation that was scattered anyways in the beginning. I forgot to tell you that part about us. We're the only nation that doesn't have um, a regular reservation, where it's outlined, this is where your reservation is. We don't have that.
What do you have?
Canandaigua Treaty gives us reservation status and gives us 64,000 acres, 44 on this side and 20 on that side, of the northern end of the lake. But doesn't go all the way to the northern end of the lake. So it's always been a question of mine of who made those lines. Why did they only give us that much? And again, who made the lines? But like anything else, it's a matter of assimilation. Right? So we do have reservation status. Flint Halftown has a reservation.
I see.
We laugh at that too because it's only 2 houses.
There was a lot of chanting today that Clint Halftown has to go.
Oh, definitely.
What needs to happen next in order for that to happen?
What needs to happen next is that the government has to step up and do their part on turning this around before something else really happens. It's not going to be good.
Have they shown any interest in hearing?
The Justice Department, from what I understand today, the Justice Department did not know anything about this. So that tells me the new Secretary of Interior doesn't know about it. The new guy who just got in to be Assistant Secretary to the Interior doesn't know about it. The head of the BIA does know about it, but can't do anything about it until he gets an okay from the other two. So that's how I guess it works. But we are making them aware of the things that happen. We do have some paperwork that we can send in. We have some videos that we can send in. We have declarations that we can send in. And yeah, we're looking for him to be gone.
If I can editorialize for a second, I've noticed that you've spoken a lot about knowledge about the structure of the federal and state governments of the United States here. Has that same sort of interest and understanding of governmental structure been extended to you guys? Do they understand how decisions are made and just choose to ignore them, or do they just not understand how decisions are made?
They have knowledge of our way because we've been sending papers for the last 20 years telling them who we are, what we are, and why we are, and how we became chiefs, and how our government works. And all they had to do was to look into that. But if they do that, then that means that they made a mistake.
Right.
Somebody had pointed that out to me, and I just said, well, why don't they just correct it? Well, it's been 20 years. What do you think is going to happen to the BIA office? Well, it shouldn't be there anyways. It needs to go, just like him.
What can people who live nearby and maybe watch or listen to this do from where they are that would be the most helpful for you?
I've been asked that question ever since I've been here since 2014. To make people aware, there's different groups that happen. There's the Catholic Charities, I guess, from Ithaca. They had signed a letter and had people sign it themselves to send it in to the government. Get a hold of your congressman, get a hold of your legislatures, get a hold of anybody that has a title. Let them know what's going on and how you're not happy about it, even though it may someday be a better thing to do for everybody. But like that lady said out there, I heard, I pay my taxes, why don't you pay yours? Well, see, the difference between us and them is that they have to because they don't know any better, right? Mm-hmm. We don't. We know better.
If you were to pay those taxes, would you see anything come back to you from that?
No, I don't. No. That's not what's going to happen. We can help them out. We can pay for our electric. We can pay for our water. But no, we're not going to pay no taxes. We don't pay taxes. That's what all the treaties are about. We've been trying 20 years of telling them about treaties. The two-row, to confront the friendship. All these treaties that were made, all saying the same thing. As long as the grass is green, the water flows, and the sun shines. They all say the same thing. And they've ignored every single one of them. But we keep reminding them of the 2-row, and that's what's been working so far.
I see. Is there anything else that you'd like to let people know about, or any other history details that you'd like to fill in to help people understand the story?
Well, like I said, I've been around the lake a couple times, and now I keep saying this over and over. I haven't seen the map yet. I know I saw it once. Where our original territory is, from Lake Ontario on down both sides of the lake. Pennsylvania, West Virginia, and Ohio was our original territory. The ones around the lake are starting to acknowledge that part, that they're on our territory. And our lawyer says, well, that's not the Canandaigua Treaty. It doesn't matter. It's still our territory.
What have those acknowledgments meant for you?
I think it means that some people are paying attention and want change. They want to be part of the good things that are happening. They want to be part of that because they're sick and tired of that salt mine down there, and some of these farmers dumping their stuff into the lakes, damaging the water. So.
I think that's everything I can think of. Is there anything else I should cover?
Thing, yeah. Which is, like, it's funny to do it right now, but could you just introduce yourself and like your title?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I was born in 1952. I was given the English name, or sometimes called the slave name, of St. George. In 2004, my grandmother came to me and said, "You're next." That's after my uncle passed away. And I tried to get out of it, but people say when your grandmother tells me you're next, you're next. So from that point on, I got recognized at the Tonawanda Reservation, because that's how the system works. You get recognized. Everybody comes from all different nations to come and greet you. And then we send it over to the other side, the older brothers, for getting a condolence of being put in place, and given a title. My uncle's title is Shoyǫ. Shoyǫ means pulling guts. I found that story, heard that story a couple years later after that, why it means pulling guts, and they said back when the Peacemaker came up from the south end of the lake in this canoe that they were in, he saw these fishermen on the side of the lake, and he wanted to know what they were doing, so they rode over there, and what they saw was one guy, the first guy, was taking the fish, hitting him on the head. I think that's the title that he carries. Then he hands it to me, and I pull out the guts. That's Shoyǫ. I hand him to the next one, and that's he puts them on the pole to dry out. That's his title name too. I asked her how to say that. I can't say it right now because I only know mine for sure. So that's the title I have today, and that title's been here time immemorial. So that's it. If you want to know, they say Hoyane Shoyǫ when it comes time to introduce myself to anybody else. All that means is that, from what my teacher says, it's here's a good person who pulls guts. So hang on to yours. I may be pulling yours next. Thank you. No.
Thank you.
Donito.